So let's talk a little bit about what we found in our review of the drawings. Both us, I should mention, and I should have it at the introduction, that the team was TruexCullins as architects. We had Pearson and Associates, which is the division of Du Bois and King, as our mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineers to look at this. We had Engineering Ventures as our civil engineers and our structural engineers. So there was an entire team that looked at the building and the site and developed the report. So let's start with a few concerns that came up. And one of the largest concerns that we have is that this building is a 81,000 square foot building that is only partially sprinklered. The codes have developed significantly over time, and you would not be able to construct this building today and get a permit for it without providing a full building sprinkler system or partitioning the building into significantly smaller areas than it's partitioned into right now. So you're fine operating the way you are today. That the code is fine as a building to continue to operate, even though you wouldn't meet current codes. But as I've explained to Dave and to Mark, if there's any significant renovation planned, if there's any significant addition planned, the state of Vermont, the Vermont Division for Fire Safety, will want us to develop a plan to address some of the fact that we aren't really meeting current codes. Any new construction will have to. Any existing construction that needs to be upgraded will have to meet the existing building code. But we will have to think about and develop a plan to make any significant changes to the building in terms of major renovations or additions. One of the other things that I'll point out, and hopefully people can see my cursor here, is there are what we call firewalls or fire barrier walls included in the construction of the building. There's one that exists right here. There's another one that's called out here. And there's one that's not particularly called out in the drawings, but almost exists, which is the old outside wall of the 1957 building. These essentially partition the building into smaller components or smaller buildings. That helps us get down to, closer to the 14,500 gross square feet that's allowed in a non-sprinkler building of type E occupancy. But there are concerns that these buildings do not meet current requirements for firewalls and fire barriers. So there are openings in them, which they're not supposed to have without a vestibule. Again, this is something we can negotiate with the Division for Fire Safety once we move the project along and we understand what the scope is that we want to do to improve the school. One other concern that we discovered that we wanted to bring everyone's attention is that we're considering the building type 2B, which is established by the International Building Code, and that is considered to be a non-combustible building type. And you are only allowed to use, in limited cases, combustible materials in a non-combustible building. But not quite clear how this happened, but during the construction in 1989, the conversion of the gymnasium, 1957 gymnasium space, into an auditorium space added tiered seating and a kind of platform construction here above the rooms that were then kind of band practice rooms. And those are all built of wood trusses and wood floor framing and plywood. So there is a concern there. It's not sprinkled underneath there, and we don't have access to it. There's not free and open access to it to see what's going on. So that's considered a concealed inaccessible space below that seating. We would need to address that, I think, with any change to the building or significant renovation to the building. The other thing I'll note is that the 1937 building, as we've already noted, has a combustible roof. It has roof rafters and roof decking. So technically, it really isn't a 2B building. It is a 3B building. It is combustible. And so in that case, we would have to have a firewall that exists between a 2B building and a 3B building. So we, again, negotiation with the Division of Fire Safety to address this issue. We also took a look at, but not in depth, kind of did an overall survey of accessibility in the building. And we would note that although there were some steps toward providing full accessibility in the 1989 construction, your multi-fixture bathrooms are not fully compliant. There are counter height issues. There are lack of full access widths that are required by the ADA, the Americans with Disability Act, and many other issues. So another concern is that the single-use bathrooms, the single-fixture bathrooms that are provided out throughout the school, not any of those are fully compliant with the ADA. The seating at your auditorium, also the counter heights in many of the classrooms are too high. Drinking fountains are required to be accessible to both folks who are in wheelchairs and able-bodied people. So usually you find a high-low configuration. That's not the way things exist in the school now. So we're suggesting that a full ADA survey, a more in-depth ADA survey, would be appropriate to find out, what's there and what we can change in any contemplated renovation or renewal of the school. So those are the major code issues. We also then had our civil engineer look at the site. And I think, there were some interesting, and this is probably no surprise to anybody, some issues that we think should be dealt with better on the site. In terms of safety, access, and circulation, we're worried about pedestrians and students mixing with cars on the access drive from Peacham Road. It would be much preferable to keep pedestrians and cars from mixing. I think everyone would agree on that one. The kind of mix up between the circulation of buses and vehicle circulation and pedestrian circulation, we might want to consider finding a way to separate bus traffic, the bus traffic from the cars. And there's certainly significant current concerns about parking. It's not that well organized. It seems that there's not sufficient quantity of it, and that there are a number of ADA spaces that are missing based on the survey that was completed by the civil engineer. So that is a brief overview of site.